This is Digital Breakthroughs, putting the spotlight on cutting-edge digital marketing strategies for your business. With your host, CEO of industry-recognized digital marketing and social media agency, National Positions, Bernard May.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Digital Breakthroughs podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about conversion rate optimization with Matt Erickson. He is the Director of Marketing here at National Positions, and I'm really excited about talking about conversion rate optimization. Conversion is one of those areas that can have a massive economic multiplier on your business and can identify surprisingly profitable areas that can really transform your business. And I feel like this is one of those areas that's near and dear to my heart. It's one of those areas that just isn't well handled by so many companies. And I think today we're going to uncover a lot of areas that I hope will create that spark of insight, of excitement, and everyone's going to find this information actionable, and they're going to jump right into it. So we were talking about these multipliers, and before I jump in with Matt, I just wanted to give you an example of the power of conversion. So let's just say you're spending $2,000 a month on internet advertising, and you're generating, say, 5,000 visitors with a 1% conversion rate. I know I'm throwing out a lot of numbers here, but if you take a 1% conversion rate with 5,000 visitors, you're going to end up with a total of 50 conversions, and your acquisition cost will be $40. Now, let's say we keep that spend exactly the same. We keep the $2,000 a month, and we're generating those 5,000 visitors, but your conversion rate goes from 1% to 2%. That means you're going to get 100 conversions, and your acquisition cost will go down to $20. And that's really, really exciting. So all of a sudden, you've got 100 conversions just by doubling up your conversion rate. But this goes much further, and a lot of the excitement around conversion is the lifetime value of those clients. So now you went from having 50 conversions, say 50 clients, to 100 clients, and you have an opportunity then to go out and sell to each of those clients over and over. So that was a long intro, but welcome, Matt. Good to have you here today to talk about conversion rate optimization.
Good to be here. It's been a while, and it's definitely a subject that I think most people assume that if I'm marketing, conversion is just part of it, and it's definitely something that it's you have to dig in to realize that more is not always better. And if you understand that, conversion is sometimes a missing piece of a puzzle, you really have to look inward on your brand to figure out, oh, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? Which can be a little tough to take sometimes, but if we're trying to be more profitable, that's definitely not something you can overlook. So thanks for having me again. It's always good to be back here.
Yeah, I think, let's start out with discussing an area as to why a lot of websites are failing out there. When I say failing, maybe just not achieving what they really should be achieving when it comes to the opportunity that they have out there. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to just websites specifically, it really comes down to, before I go into what I think people should be focusing on, websites are kind of that labor of love, and a lot of brands, especially, younger brands, they put a lot of time into it at the forefront, and they went, okay, that's good, set that, forget that, and work over here. So it may have been fine 2 years ago. It may have been fine 6 months ago. It may have been fine before COVID, but now they have not really kept up with, what the demand is of what people want, what's going to make people's life easier, what's going to make that user experience better to reduce the friction points that come into conversions. So that's kind of the broad part when it comes to websites. But I mean, specifically things that people should be looking at are the usability of their sites. Is it easy to navigate? Is it easy to understand what you do, what you sell, what your value prop is? And is it easy to do this on per device? I'm working on a Mac right now, but if someone's on a PC or someone's on a specific, mobile device or a tablet, it's important to remember that experience that's going to help people convert easier is going to sometimes be dependent on, what device that they're using. So you may think your website looks fantastic and it does work flawlessly, but if on your desktop, but if 80% of your traffic is mobile, you may be missing a big piece. That's just some of the, just the user experience side. Of course, you have your visuals, your messaging, your content, your aesthetics. I think the thing I'm seeing most often is people are working so fast because everyone knows they have to get their e-commerce up and going, but they're missing the clarity. It sounds very basic, but it's like, this is what we do. This is how our solution is better. This is how we make your life better. And just doing that in a very streamlined way that's just scratching the surface on how to start making your websites convert.
Yeah, so I think one of the areas that you brought up, which is so important, is all about user intent, user experience. Now, if you don't know who or what your user looks like or who you're trying to attract, I think that really is the number one pitfall. And starting out with that idealistic visitor, who they are, what they care about, even down to how they navigate, how sophisticated they are with technology.
Well, and something you just said there that was really important, which was, you said who you're trying to attract. And I have this thing, I heard it a long time ago, don't remember where it came from, but it's that if you're trying to appeal to everybody, you're appealing to nobody. If you're trying to get, we just need anyone, it's like, well, then you don't really know who you're trying to market to, which is a problem.
Yeah, so that comes down to also segmentation. I know I hear this all the time. My product is something that appeals to everybody. That's great. But that is, I think, one of the most fundamental errors that people make, is that they go in there and they decide that the product's for everyone. In fact, what you really should do is go in and understand what we call the personas, or the idealistic view of who you are out there marketing to. Actually write that up and have that in front of you when you're designing a page, when you're writing the content, when you're thinking through what people really care about. Because I think that if you do that, you are going to build around that intent, and you are going to really hit on the needs of that particular client. I think one of the areas I see as a real problem is you come to a website as well and you really don't know what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not really getting in there and answering the needs of what your particular ideal client base is looking for. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen that people are trying to be, I was writing a thing before and I was writing less sizzle, more steak. They're trying so, and I get it. Every brand is doing this unless you're already established. You're trying so hard to sound cool or to sound different or to sound, but then it's 3 scrolls down before you realize, oh, you do virtual workouts. Got it. Okay, I understand now. But who's going to wait that long? If someone with all this COVID stuff, which I understand, I'm in the same boat. If you're trying to work out at home and you're like, I need to find someone who can do, Zoom workouts, and you search Zoom workouts and you get a CrossFit, gym, but it's not calling that out at the beginning. Work out at home on your schedule. It doesn't lay that out. It can confuse someone very quickly. And you may have taken that into account in your content further down as an add-on, but you need to pay attention with your personas, what matters now, not what mattered before, what's going to hopefully matter 6 months from now.
So this is principle I've heard, and it says that top companies design for function and not aesthetics.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes to what you're saying as well, is a lot of people are trying to be cool and they're trying to put, I see a lot of headlines out there that if you really removed the headline and if you really removed the images and the colors and all the other aesthetics around that, you would be like, what are they trying to say? What is this? And there's this thing about being functional and really, I think Amazon is an example of that, where they have taken over the years. If you look at Amazon's website from, say, a decade ago, even 15 years ago. It's not that different, but they've made small little iterations to make the site as functional as possible, so that when you get a product description page, that page has got absolutely everything that you would need to make a decision whether this is a good product or not.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And they also, something that just popped in my head is that they went spending years figuring out how do we make search better, finding what they want better. And then the last 5 years or 4 years, maybe even less, they pivoted into how do we help them discover better? How do we help them? We saw this, we've all seen this where we buy a product and people usually bought this with this, but now you open that homepage and it's got, gifts for him, gifts for her, based off your previous purchases. And so you may have even gone in to look for a specific thing and you start going down the rabbit hole of, and we don't not like it. We kind of like it because if people didn't like that, it wouldn't be on Amazon. They would have tested it for 6 months and okay, that beta didn't work. We're going to remove it. So I think that's definitely, you hit it on the head where it's like, if let's just go back to the workout thing, because I'm always interested in that. If you have a site, you may be trying to promote a very, team-oriented, family-oriented, whatever. But if your head image doesn't show someone sweating and working out, it may not be, they may think, oh, this is just, it's a support site. They may not understand that it's an actual workout site. So I think you're right. If you can cut things down to the bone, and if it doesn't add, it detracts, and then you can put some sprinkles on top of that. But like you said, work for function over, what was you said? Function over aesthetics?
Exactly.
I mean, aesthetics matter, but they have to be functional aesthetics, not just more aesthetics.
And I think you got to think about who's coming to your website and what they want to do. And they're at different stages of the funnel, which is something I think we want to talk about at some point. But maybe before we get into that, let's talk about what does a great landing page look like? I mean, what are the elements that need to be on a great landing page, and how do you make your website, into this money-making machine?
Yeah. So it's also for everyone listening, you have landing pages. You can have a PPC landing page, a paid media, landing page, or you can just consider every page on your site its own landing page, which you probably should. Consider any page someone hits, if that's the only page they saw, would it inspire them to take any action, help direct any action, or would they have to actually go to this other page to figure out what to do? So in other words, confusion, friction. But let's just take a basic straight up landing page. You have to answer the question or the solution right off the top. That goes into your, into that headline. And this isn't something that is the best technology in the world for your business. That doesn't say anything. That you may be a tech company, but what is the intent of what your product does? National positions, drive more quality traffic to your websites now. Oh, okay. So you're trying to hit that pain point right off the top, along with your imagery and some kind of call to action in that first fold. Like right here, where you see us here, it's got to be from here up. If you are not hitting at least 3 of the 5, a call to action, imagery that inspires them to do something, and a message that makes it clear as to what you do, then you need to reassess that. As you scroll down, that's when testing will come into play.
Yeah. So I'm going to say this in a slightly different way and see if you agree with me on this, but every single element of your page has a goal. Yeah. The headline is really important in that it's going to determine whether people are going to interact with the page or bounce off. Your hero image. Hero image is at the top. Does that hero image resonate with the person landing there? Is it, again, helping or answering the intent or the need for that particular user at that particular time? And then I find just going down, obviously there are lots of different elements on pages and they all vary, whether it's a form or it's a product or it's a category, so some kind of landing page, which is a category page, which has lots of products on it. Yeah. Each of them has to have a goal. And I think if we take one takeaway or one thing that I found very helpful when I heard this, it was like an aha moment for me, is everything needs to have a goal. Like
Yeah.
even if the goal is to click to the next page on the website, it needs a goal.
Yeah.
And the one of the other things that's really interesting is looking at your page and asking the question, maybe the other way around, is how many goals are there on this page? And attention is something that people have very little of. And I know there's kind of this thing called the 5-second rule, which is, you have 5 seconds to get to grab someone's attention. It's probably less now. They say that the attention of the average internet user is lower than a goldfish. Have you heard that? But it's somewhat true.
Did I just say about going on Amazon and like going for one thing and looking at something? No, I think you're probably right. Yeah.
So if that's the case, then, what are you trying to get them to do? I think one of the mistakes that people do is they have too many competing
goals,
items on the page. Yeah. And I think that's been proven from the guys at Unbounce. I saw a study recently where they looked at a home page, and they said there were 47 different things you could do on that home page. And of course, typically there's navigation, which allows you to click away. But there are lots and lots of other distractions that can not take people to what you want them to do on that particular page. So to cut down on the number of elements, I think, is absolutely critical. And content is important, and telling people what to do. And maybe these are some of the areas I want to maybe dive further into with you, is like, how do you do that? It's all about psychology. Yeah. And how do you get people to take those actions that you want them to take?
Yeah. Well, let's go back to your first thing, which was about the goals. Every page has a goal. And then I want to go into that because it's before you got onto the 47 different, that's insane, is you may have a landing page and you should have, one main goal, whether that could be, I want them to fill out this form. I'm trying to get information. Maybe that's your core goal, which is fine. Now you may have another one where it's like, okay, I want them to click through to a product or send me their information. Okay, that's fine. If you start getting into 3, 5, 7 different, if you're on the top of the page and it's a product and you're like, see it in action, cool, click. Okay, that's still surrounding the product. You may have get 10% off this product now. Okay, that's still trying to drive them towards the product. If you then had something that said, check out our other products, then it starts getting confusing as to, well, wait, am I here for this product, or am I just here to see a book of different products? So you could, let's just say, depending on the size of your landing page, you had 5 main calls to action. If they're all related around the same thing, as you go down, there is a psychology that's going to build, because at the top, no, I'm not going to watch the video, but you get a couple scrolls down, you've seen this versus this, this pair of shoes versus that pair of shoes. And then maybe you get down to the third call to action, and it's use code this to get 20% off your first order. Well, that's been building as you go, and it's still buy the product, see the product, see it in action, compare the product, buy the product. But it's not sending them in different directions where they're not sure if they're actually going to be able to buy the product off the page or just view other products that you have. So the point is you don't want to have conflicting goals and things that are going to take away from the main goal of making, having a form filled, having a purchase made, if that is the goal of the page. If you start just adding in links and goals just for the sake of having more stuff on the page, then you're diluting your landing page.
Absolutely. There's so many elements to consider. How, I guess a lot of our listeners are probably saying, well, how do I approach this? What do you recommend at national positions for actually defining where the problem is? Is it the problem on my form? Is the problem on my calls to action? Is it problem with my content being too dense? There are lots and lots of very low level, decisions that need to be made. But how do you start from the macro perspective? Where do we start in this whole conversion optimization process to make sure that we actually getting to work on what's important?
Yeah, the first thing from a macro perspective, because I get that if you're going just in this last 7 minutes, we're like, there's calls to action, there are goals, and it can get frustrating very quickly as I don't know where to begin. First, learn to love the metrics, learn to love the data, learn to love the numbers. And what I'm getting at is learn to love Google Analytics a little bit, just a little bit, because I understand. I mean, early in my career, I was not a numbers person. And then as the years have gone by, you start relating those metrics to success and it becomes far more interesting. So first of all, if you don't have Google Analytics set up on your account, your website, get that done. And I'm sure you can find that. It's pretty easy. You can find a way to do that. So first you want to look at that high level to see, where is traffic going on your site and where is it not going on your site? Now, obviously you're going to see your homepage. That's going to have probably the majority of traffic. But you may have built 20 other product pages that are getting 0 because people either don't know how to get there because of your usability, or the landing pages you have are not driving them there. So you just want to see what people are doing now, not worry about what you want them to do yet, but just see like your top 5 or 10 pages where people are going, where they're spending time, that's called time on site or average time on site, depending on your page, and see, are they spending them on specific product pages? Are they on specific case study pages or whatever it's going to be? See where they're spending the most time. Because if you know where they're spending the most time, you know where you have the most opportunity. If they're spending a lot of time on a product page, but wow, there's no sales that have come off of that page. You may have done something as simple as forgot to say, click to buy now, add to cart. You may have made a wonderful product page without an action telling them what they need to do.
Yeah.
So that's one of the first things is find out where your traffic is going and find out where they're not going. Because if you know where they're going and you know that they're spending a lot of time on certain pages, you might be able to replicate that on your lower performing pages. You can look and see like, wow, all of these sites, they all have videos on them. Look at that. All of those high performing pages had videos. So can you replicate that on your lower performing pages? And then you also want to see where people are bouncing off your site. Bouncing off your site means they get to a page, whatever that page may be, and they don't take any actions. They don't click a video. They just go, nope, and they leave. Which means that, especially if it's on a product page or it's on it's a page where you're trying to get some information, something is turning them off very quickly. Either you're confusing them or they're just not clear as to what to do. So those are some of the first things that you should be doing. I know there's a ton of things you can do, but just high level, that's where you should start. And then I'm sure we can get into, like Bernard said, every page should have a goal so you can make sure that you're tracking conversions and tracking goals and all of this in Google Analytics, which, I mean, I'm sure that you have something to add on that.
No, I just, yes. So number one is I totally agree with you. Get into analytics. I can't emphasize more how important it is to dive into the numbers and to look for those high traffic pages that have a high bounce rate, which is basically what you say. I'm just saying it in a different way.
Sure.
Have a look for those pages. Those are the ones besides your home page, which is always something that you do want to optimize, but it's more complicated. So those internal pages are getting a lot of traffic, but they're getting a lot of people leaving. Those are the pages to look at, and those are the ones to start working on and to create those experiments. But now the next step is really to dive down on those particular pages and to identify what the problems are. So how do you approach that? You've been in analytics, you've kind of got to the point where you've identified this is where there's a pain point, this is where there's a problem. How can I now find out what's getting those people to abandon or jump off or not do what we expect them to do?
Yeah. So there's a number, so beyond using Google Analytics, because it does, one kind of a hardship about it is you may be excited once you get in there, but you need to see where your benchmarks are in order to then go, okay, I'll go over how you can find out some of this in a minute, but you would then need to implement some changes and then wait to see what that does to the numbers, which can be just heart-wrenchingly painful. But a few things that you can do. One, within Google Analytics, of course, you can look at live on site, see who's actually on your site, but that doesn't show you what they're doing. The only way you could see at a macro level what they're doing, everybody, is going into your site flow in Google Analytics, which is fine. But what I would recommend is if you're trying to see what's working, what's not working, what do people like and not like, there are several different, how should I put this? Because I would say just heat mapping technology, but there are screen recording technologies that can record site sessions that come into your site. It doesn't get any personal data. It's not like John Smith did this. It doesn't show any of that. So there's no worry about, infringing on anyone's, personal information. But what you can do is you can use these technologies to go in and see, at a high level, you can see a full page, and the system will actually be able to track where they're spending most time. If they scroll down and maybe you had a headline, and you'll see it just like you saw the old war movies from the 80s where it showed like remember Predator when it showed the heat, same kind of thing. It'll show you what people are just skimming over. That'll be in like blue, but then where people are spending a little bit of time either reading or looking at a video or what they're clicking.
Right.
So that's one way. The other way is with that's just the heat mapping part, but then you could have the screen recording part where you can actually watch people scrolling down, and you may see, wow, okay, they keep stopping here, but there's like, you may have a headline that says, check out our case study, and you may have known, yeah, they should click over to the case study page, but you didn't put a link in there. Right. So they could be confused. So those are just a few ways you can kind of spy on people who are coming in to try to figure out how to make their user experience better. So it's better for them, and also so it'll convert better. So it's better for you.
Yeah, I love these tools. We have something at National Positions called the Conversion Growth Pack. And it, as you said, it might even sound a little bit like science fiction itself, in that you can actually watch users alive interacting with your website. So if you are concerned about a particular kind of device, how you're doing on mobile devices versus desktop, and where people are actually getting stuck on a particular page, where you're seeing the most attention, how far people scroll down the page. Those are all things that I love looking at in these heat maps and trying to get an idea of why people are having problems. And you see this often, that there might be someone who's just clicking on the menu on their mobile phone, which means that they're finding whatever is on this page not particularly appealing, or they're not scrolling down to the most important information. So what you've got to do is you've got to push that information towards the top of the page.
That's a great one.
Above the fold, like above the fold is so important. Now, this is the old term that came from newspapers, but literally it was the information that you would have that you see first without scrolling. And these are really, really important. And you want to see where people are clicking and not clicking. I've seen instances where people are clicking on an image all the time, thinking that that image is clickable and they can go somewhere else. And other areas I've seen where we have a link or a button that people aren't clicking at all because they don't even see it as a link or a button. So those
which both of those can be, for example, like two things. Things you really hit. One, that thing that you just said about if you're seeing there's a lot of heat going on at the top and then not very much in the middle, but towards the bottom, you're getting all this. Look, maybe you have videos that are showing testimonials and people's stories. Like, okay, that you definitely need to move that higher up because that's higher value. People need to. That's going to help their conversion decision. But if someone, let's say they're clicking an image, for whatever the reason may be, well, that may be a perfect place to put a video now. Because if people are trying to click it, well, something's making them want to do that. Whether maybe it could see it in action, and you mean for them, like Bernard said, you have to have a link to a video, just embed that video. And that'll keep them on the page longer, which will help your ranking, can probably help conversion, and help a whole myriad of other things.
There are a couple of other areas of at least our conversion growth pack that I like as well, that I thought that users might be interested or listeners might be interested in, which is form analytics. A lot of people have problems on forms. We get this question all the time. Should the form be very long? Should the form be short? What should I include? What shouldn't I include? That's a lot of what you see with form analytics. I don't know if you've seen anything cool or interesting on that tool.
Forms are not, I will say this because I spent a lot of time in forms, and it's amazing that, I mean, the simple answer as far as forms go are this. Well, two. One, shorter the better, only because, like Bernard said, our attention spans are just not there. But that also does depend on who your audience is. If you're a B2B audience or a B2C audience, B2C is going to have more of the goldfish. Maybe the B2B will have 3 goldfish, but it's definitely something that if you're, let's say you're a local cleaning service, you do come and you clean homes or apartments. That stuff you're going to want a shorter form. You're not going to need, name, best time to contact email, and maybe one other. You don't need a whole lot. But if you do have, let's say, a B2B tech stack or something, that's when you start seeing things like, of course, the name, phone, email, that stuff. But then you'll see, what's your industry? And there's like a drop down to different industries. Even once in a while, I'm doing research and I'll come across some site and there's a form that has 7 or 8. I mean, it takes up most of the fold, and I just kind of like, I don't know who's filling this stuff out, because I know I wouldn't. That's not just because I'm in marketing. That's just because I don't have that kind of time to sit there and fill all these things out. So you can definitely, if you're watching forms with this tracking software to see what's performing, this is also a big part of doing A/B testing or multivariate testing on your landing pages, to see. And you can always do this on the same page. You could have a page that has a button right at the top, book your appointment now, click, and it brings up a lightbox. And okay, that's one kind of form. It's a lightbox form. Well, then further down, you may have an in-page form with either the same amount of information needed, or maybe one more or one less. Okay, well, now you're testing 2 forms on the same page, but they're also different styles and different sizes. And then you maybe can have one in the footer that's just, will contact you, and it's very, very short. So those are ways you can test forms, but also layering on this kind of software that Bernard's talking about with the national positions. I want to say like the analytics dashboard, wrong one. But with the technology we use, you can test all those forms at the same time and see, okay, wow, the Lightbox one that only had 4 prompts is getting, it's much, much better than one that's in page, but that has 6. So there's definitely a testing process with that to make sure that you're not scaring away any potential clients, but also that you're getting the information you need to actually make it worth reaching out to the client, and you're not just filling your inbox with leads that aren't going to go anywhere.
Yeah, so you bring up a lot of good points. The thing that I see a lot with the form analytics is that people build their websites for desktop, and then on the phone, there's a drop down. And I'm sure we've all run into this before. We can't understand why you aren't able to fill a particular field, and it's because it's a drop down. And drop downs are actually really difficult to handle when you're using a mobile device. So for instance, one of the tricks, instead of asking someone for their address, you just ask them for their zip code. And then from the zip code, you can fill out automatically what city they're in and what state they're in without having to ask them for city and state. So those are the types of things, considering mobile first. Another area of that is helpful is the surveys, is to have live chat and to ask for, having surveys, why you're leaving the site just before people leave, or what is your experience on the site? And obviously I only send that to a few people, but to get that type of information back, it's relatively inexpensive, if not free. And then with live chat, why are people actually asking questions? Is it because that information isn't on the website, or or for some other reason. So those are all things. So now we've gone to analytics, then we've gone to this conversion growth pack. And then the last part is really deciding now, we figured all this out, like which experiments are we going to be implementing? And you had mentioned before this idea of split testing or multivariate testing. I don't know if you want to tell the audience a little bit about what the difference is and which one they should choose.
Sure. I mean, the basic version, and I'm going to very much simplify this, but when you get into testing, it becomes like a spider. There's so many things you can do. But split testing is you may have heard A/B testing. That's the idea of you're taking more or less one element of a page. Let's say it's a header image, and you're using two different header images. Everything else is the same on the landing page. And then you're allowing Google Analytics, let's say if you're doing a PPC campaign, you're allowing it to serve up those pages, and you're going to see which one is getting better results. Which one, either that could be which one had more conversions, which one had more time spent on it, which one had a lower bounce rate, whatever it's going to be, to find a winner. That's just a basic split test. You could do A, B, C, you could go on, you could make it bigger, but you're testing usually, one or two variations of a page, and you're changing one or two things. Multivariant starts getting interesting because now you're many variant variations. So you're testing many variations, and often can be several different elements at the same time. So, just one example of this could be, because if you start, one of the problems that we see this happen is if someone says they want to do a split test and they have two pages that look completely different, like completely different copy, different form, different everything. Well, now you can't compare anything, because you don't know what's going to have the effect. Was it the image? Was it the copy? Was it the form? So multivariant, I think a good way to approach that is stacking, because if you stack changes, for example, let's say you have page A has image this, page B has image this. Cool. Page C has that variation of the image, and now has a button below the headline. And then maybe the fourth version has everything the third one did, but you've added live chat to that page now, something like that. So again, right. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, in multivariate testing, of course, it's almost exponential. So if you're testing 2 or 3 or 4 elements, you looking at exponential. So for instance, you got 3 elements, you can have 9 different variations. You got 4, you got 16 different elements ways that the tools that you're using to do the experimentation can actually show the results. And it needs a lot of traffic to get to a statistically significant result. And usually that is only something that I recommend if you have a much bigger website with a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
And that's a key. Most people are doing split testing, and the big question then is like, what do you test? And I'll just throw out a couple of things. So you could have a checklist, your navigation, your products, your pricing, your testimonials, your calls to action, your website layout, your return policy. I mean, there's just so many things that you could be considering when doing a test. So where do you start?
That's a big question. For one thing is that two things. I guess there's 2 things. A, if you have never used a landing page, or I'm considering this from a straight paid media standpoint, you're on like Google search or something. If you've never done that, it's very hard you have to give it time. Like Bernard said, you have to, have enough traffic coming to this page so you can try to figure out, okay, what works, what doesn't. The first thing, like Bernard was saying, there is a checklist of your image, your images, your videos, your aesthetics, the goal you have, the offer you have, the forms you have. Are you asking? Do you have calls to action? All those things, just to make sure you have all those basic things. And then from there, the easiest thing to change between the first time you're testing things is the imagery. Because the imagery, it takes, I don't want to say less time, but writing copy and gripping copy and thumb stopping copy, it takes a lot of time. So the first thing that I would be doing is I'd be testing the imagery. I'd be testing the imagery from, one to the other, and, letting that run for at least, if you're a smaller business, at least 2 weeks. Because if you don't have a budget, that's a problem. If you're, we've had this before, people are like, say, I'm going to spend $200 on Google ads. Okay, a day? No, for the month. Okay, but if it costs $5 a click, you're not even getting into the hundreds of people visiting these pages to try to figure out what works and what doesn't. So that's the first thing. And so if you go images, and then you can go headline copy, then you go forms, but you need to have that, kind of listed out, like, what am I going to be testing? This. And every time you get a winner, let's say you do the image test and people have spent 20% more time on this imagery than that imagery. Okay, you're going to take that page, you're going to duplicate it, and now we're going to take that and we're going to add in a call to action under the headline, and we're going to move the form higher up on the page. Okay, now we're going to test that for another 2 weeks or 1,000 visits or however long. So the short version is how you figure out what to test slowly and deliberately. I totally get that it feels like money is just draining away, but it's kind of like if you were trying to work out and trying to get more healthy and you try to change your diet, your water intake, your weight lift, you try to do everything at the exact same time, you're going to fail because you need to grow into it. So, that's where I would start personally.
Yeah, I think just to add to what you're saying, some of the thoughts I have on this is understanding, and then I'm kind of going full circle. One of the first things you said was make sure you understand the user's intent. So if the user is coming in and they're looking to find out, let's just say it's a LASIK surgeon, and they're trying to find out, what is LASIK surgery? How expensive is it? How painful is it? How long is the recovery? Then you need to answer those questions. So I always go back to, like, what were you trying to do? And I guess it goes back to the goal setting as well. Sometimes I find there's a lack of congruence between where the traffic's coming from and what people were expecting on that particular page. So go back and then using all of the elements. We've used analytics, we've used heat maps. We understand where people are clicking or not clicking, where items are below the fold or above the fold, whether it's a mobile device or a desktop query, and then, like, making those decisions. And I think it's hard because there's a lot that you could test. The biggest mistake is testing too much, exactly what you were saying. 100%, Matt, agree with you on, that is a rookie mistake, is going in and, like, making hundreds of changes, because then you never know what actually improved. If it does improve, you have no idea what improved it. But it's really going back to that functionality we were talking about before. Is like, what do people care about? Where are they in the funnel? Are they at the top of the funnel asking those LASIK questions that I gave, or are they ready to buy? I think so many times I find that pages are designed around, I'm ready to sell something to someone. It's all about me, as in the company, and not about the users. And it's really deciding. There is a point where you have to ask for the business, just like you do when you're trying to sell someone in person. It's like, how do I build the relationship? How do I get people to come back? So I think it's you brought up a lot of really, really great points there.
And this is where you see a lot of, like, early risk reversals, where there's, like, again, I come back to the, workout site. Are you ready to be healthy? Are you ready to be the best you? Not like, are you ready to join our team? It's about them. It's not about you. Why is it about them? Everybody, all the time? Because, well, at least in this country, we live in a very me-dominated world, so it's, how fast can I get it? How quickly is this going to work for me? So it is important that your language does reflect that. And bringing this back full circle, if early in your Google Analytics research, let's say you, like Bernard said, this is for everybody. Well, yeah, being healthy may be for everybody, but you may find that in your digging in your research, that in your demographics, wow, 68% of the gender split coming to my site are women. Okay, well, maybe you need to tone up your landing page with the proper imagery and messaging to hit the pain points that matter for that demographic more than everybody. So you're right, Bernard. It does come full circle with, starting with that data and then all the way down.
And you brought up a great point about like knowing your audience, and it goes back to that intent area. I think one of the other mistakes that people make is they feel like they should get a home run every single time. And what I mean by that is there are many situations, especially with a complicated product or an expensive product, where you want to take those hits. You want to get that one, you want to get a base hit. You want to get them to give you their email address, or you want them to click on a particular area or download a particular document, and then go and get them to come back. And a lot of that is by giving things away, like for instance, making sure you've got those marketing magnets out there, and that you're trying to build that relationship. And I see that over and over, where people they don't understand why they don't have a better conversion. And that's, again, because they're not building that relationship. I know we're running a little out of time, so I wanted to, and this is such a fascinating subject. I know we could continue to speak about psychology and pricing, because I know you could take everything that we've spoken about now, and if your pricing is so out of whack and you haven't actually looked at your competition, or you haven't built the value, you're just not going to get the conversions. And I've seen some wonderful sites where the pricing is so out. But I thought maybe it's time to summarize some of the findings as we wrap things up. And Matt, thank you so much for all your wonderful input. Is that conversion optimization is a long-term strategy. It's not something that you just do and then you forget about it. It's something that you should be building into your process. And every single month going through that methodology that we said, okay, you've got a checklist of different items. You need to understand what the intent is. You need to really be there understanding Google Analytics and what Google Analytics is telling you. Then you've got to dive into your conversion tool, whether it's Lucky Orange or Hotjar or National Positions Conversion best practices, and just dive in there, look at those videos, understand the heat maps and the form analytics, and then take those actions, put in those experiments, split test. And I know that sounds really easy as a formula, but it's actually obviously quite complicated, and there's quite a lot of art to it. But I was wondering if there was one thing that you would want our listeners to take away today. What would that be, Matt?
Wow. I think the one thing, coming from spending about 10 years in the industry, is check your ego at the door. It's a painful process, because what you're basically asking when you're doing conversion testing and optimization is to go, okay, where did I fail? Where did I go wrong? And once you kind of accept that and go, okay, but that's the only way we get better, is if we know where we screwed up. And again, I think not seeing it as, I failed, it's just, I didn't know what I know now. So constantly reevaluating, gathering new information, moving. I mean, come on, if every campaign was a home run, there would be no marketers in the world. No one would need us. But that's the thing, is that if you're trying to marry the, when it comes to conversion, it's that mix of the psychology and the data. And it's, every time you run a campaign, you're going to learn something new. Just worry about now, not yesterday, and just keep moving forward and testing one thing at a time. You'll get there.
So I guess the two takeaways: check your ego at the door. I couldn't agree with that more. There's so many.
We're all guilty of that.
There's so many CEOs that build the website. They feel that they're that ideal customer when they're not. They're the CEO of the company, but they choose the colors. They choose the calls to action. They critique the website and make it in their own image in a way where it's really listen to what you're seeing. You actually have a lot of tools out there that you can take advantage of and then constantly be testing. So that was Matt Erickson, Director of marketing at national positions. Thank you so much, Matt, for joining me today to talk about this absolutely fascinating subject. Conversion rate optimization, it can have such an impact on your business, and it can really multiply your sales and your success online. Thank you again for joining us for another version, another podcast of the Digital Marketing Breakthroughs. And I hope you'll tune in again for our next podcast. Thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for having me. See you next time.
You've been listening to Digital Breakthroughs, featuring experts in all the areas of cutting-edge digital marketing. Digital Breakthroughs is hosted by Bernard May, CEO of leading social media and digital marketing agency, National Positions, located online at nationalpositions.com.